Our subject is hedonism, the powerful and enduring philosophical doctrine that posits pleasure as the primary intrinsic good and the ultimate objective of human life. This isn't a New Age concept. Its origins are firmly rooted in ancient Greece, making it one of the oldest theories of human motivation. Over the millennia, the meaning of hedonism has undergone significant refinement, but its central question remains provocative. Is the pursuit of pleasure the key to true happiness? The critical nuance, which is often lost, involves the balance. Does true hedonism endorse a life of non-stop indulgence, or does it demand a more measured approach that factors in long-term well-being and personal duty? We must ask, are all pleasures equally valuable? Is the enjoyment of fine dining equivalent to the intellectual satisfaction of great work? Let's explore the answers provided by its major proponents. At its fundamental level, hedonism is a doctrine that asserts pleasure and happiness are the supreme, ultimate goals of human existence. Essentially, it posits that the inherent value of a life is directly proportional to the total amount of enjoyment one can extract from it. The philosophy is broadly separated into two distinct categories: psychological hedonism and ethical hedonism. Ethical hedonism is a prescriptive view. It maintains that individuals should make the pursuit of pleasure their primary moral objective. In contrast, psychological hedonism is descriptive. It suggests that human beings are naturally inclined to pursue pleasure, even if they don't consciously label their actions as such. This view holds that pleasure is the underlying motivation for all human action. The intellectual bedrock of hedonistic thought lies firmly in ancient Greece. Early pioneers like Aristippus of Cyrene believed that physical pleasures held the highest rank among all good things. For Aristippus and his school, known as the Cyrenaics, the essence of a worthwhile life was found in the immediate, visceral gratification provided by each sensual experience, whether through food, drink, or other indulgence. However, another monumental figure of the time, Epicurus, offered a contrasting perspective. He argued that the highest form of pleasure was not found in luxury or intense sensory input, but rather in a state of tranquility, being free from worry, Ataraxia, and eliminating unnecessary desires. These foundational concepts catalyzed the development of hedonism. They continue to captivate thinkers and pose questions that are just as vital today as they were millennia ago. What truly constitutes happiness, and can it coexist with a deep sense of satisfaction? The central, unresolved debate persists. Should we prioritize maximizing the quantity of momentary good feelings, or strategically pursue actions that secure an enduring, overall state of contentment? The philosophical discussion is far from over. While the term hedonism often evokes images of unrestrained self-indulgence, the influential perspective offered by Epicurus provides a crucial, nuanced counterpoint. His approach, often termed moderate hedonism, fundamentally reshaped the field and remains profoundly influential today. Epicurus did not advocate for seeking out every possible pleasure. Instead, he argued that true happiness stems from two core principles: enjoying life's simple, readily available provisions, and, more importantly, the absence of suffering, both physical and mental. Central to his entire philosophy is the concept of Ataraxia, which can be defined as inner tranquility, or a state of being completely worry-free. Epicurus contended that the supreme form of enjoyment is to live a life undisturbed by mental anguish. This pursuit is not about securing a constant stream of intense, fleeting thrills, but about achieving a stable, pervasive state of contentment. Consider a powerful illustration of this contrast. Epicurus would argue that a simple evening spent sharing bread, olives, and cheese with cherished friends, a sustainable, easily attainable joy, is inherently superior to the isolating, fleeting extravagance of drinking high-end champagne alone. Epicurus's philosophy stood in stark opposition to the Cyrenaic school, where the Cyrenaics championed the immediate, physical indulgence as the highest good. Epicurus issued a clear warning: pursuing short-term pleasures indiscriminately often leads to a disproportionately greater pain later on. For instance, the brief pleasure of overeating is quickly followed by the pain of illness or discomfort. Therefore, Epicurus taught that we must strategically seek out pleasures that foster tranquility and balance over the long run. This enduring idea is strikingly relevant to modern life, echoing through contemporary practices like mindfulness and various self-care routines that prioritize mental equilibrium over momentary gratification. The origins of radical hedonism trace back to Aristippus of Cyrene, a student of Socrates who founded the Cyrenaic school in Greece. This school championed a far more extreme form of the doctrine. For the Cyrenaics, the singular focus of life was securing maximum, moment-to-moment pleasure. Their core tenet was that individuals should actively maximize these intense, immediate experiences at every possible opportunity. The Cyrenaics actively encouraged the pursuit of instant gratification. This meant embracing any immediate, enjoyable, sensory experience, whether it was savoring exquisite food, indulging in fine wine, or surrounding oneself with lavish, beautiful objects. This view established a sharp ideological divide with Epicureanism. While Epicurus advocated for moderate pleasure sustained over the long term to achieve tranquility, the Cyrenaics dismissed the waiting game as futile. To them, postponing current joy for a potential future benefit made no sense. If a delightful experience, like an evening of revelry or eating a decadent dessert, was available now, one ought to seize it. The Cyrenaic philosophy stands in significant opposition to the Epicurean emphasis on mental calmness and avoidance of excess. Where Epicurus warned against short-term pleasure if it led to later pain, Aristippus believed people should simply grab happiness as it appears. This philosophy certainly possesses an appealing carpe diem spirit. Why miss out on fun? However, the inherent flaw quickly surfaces. A lifestyle dedicated to following every instinct often results in a volatile existence, characterized by a jarring oscillation between intense highs, the result of excess, and inevitable, painful lows, the remorse and suffering that follow. The trajectory of hedonistic thought underwent a dramatic shift with the emergence of Jeremy Bentham and his philosophy of utilitarianism. Bentham essentially scaled the focus of hedonism from the individual to the collective. Instead of arguing that each person should maximize their own happiness, he proposed that the moral imperative is to work towards the greatest happiness of the greatest number. Bentham introduced the principle of utility, which serves as a moral compass. Under this principle, an action or a rule is deemed morally right if it increases pleasure or happiness, and morally wrong if it causes pain or unhappiness. This framework places pain and pleasure as the ultimate arbiters of right and wrong. he held a decidedly quantitative view of these feelings. For Bentham, both pain and pleasure are measurable entities, making it possible to calculate and determine which outcome yields a net benefit in any given situation. He viewed these feelings as fundamentally identical to the experience itself. Feeling good is pleasure, just as feeling bad is pain. Crucially, Bentham considered not only the type of pleasure, but also its quantity. When evaluating an action, a utilitarian must assess both the nature and the sheer amount of happiness it produces across the entire population. For Bentham, maximizing happiness meant constantly striking a balance between personal pleasure and the common good. Consequently, he believed that institutions, including laws, governments, and social policies, should be designed specifically to enhance overall societal happiness without unduly infringing upon individual rights. A classic example illustrates this idea. Providing widespread public education might be deemed a superior policy choice over a tax refund for a small group of high earners, as the former delivers a more substantial and lasting benefit to the collective. Bentham's foundational ideas continue to shape modern public policy debates, compelling us to ask, what are our moral obligations to one another as members of a society? And what duties does the government owe its citizens? John Stuart Mill, a successor to Jeremy Bentham, significantly refined utilitarianism by arguing that we must consider the quality of happiness, not just its mere quantity. This contribution introduced a crucial moral dimension to hedonistic calculations. Where Bentham maintained that all pleasures were equal, a game of pushpin was philosophically equal to poetry, Mill fundamentally disagreed. He believed that some pleasures hold intrinsic worth and are inherently more valuable than others. Mill drew a clear distinction between higher and lower forms of enjoyment. Higher pleasures are those that engage our intellect, such as reading a profound book or participating in a stimulating conversation. Lower pleasures, by contrast, are those tied solely to our sensory and physical appetites, such as eating a favorite food or drinking alcohol. For Mill, this differentiation wasn't arbitrary. He argued that anyone who has experienced both types of pleasure, a competent judge, would invariably see the qualitatively higher ones as preferable. This is because intellectual pursuits foster long-term satisfaction and utilize our distinctly human faculties. This conviction is encapsulated in Mill's famous declaration: "It is better to be a dissatisfied Socrates than a satisfied pig." This powerful statement suggests that a life dedicated to intellectual challenge and self-development, even if punctuated by occasional unhappiness, is superior to a superficial existence entirely devoted to physical comfort and immediate sensory fulfillment. For example, Mill would contend that the deep, sustained happiness derived by a scholar after years of learning is fundamentally more profound than the fleeting satisfaction gained by someone constantly chasing extravagant indulgences like gourmet dining or costly vacations. By adding this moral stratification, Mill's perspective asserts that people should prioritize connections and activities that yield lasting satisfaction, rather than simply maximizing transient good feelings. This insight continues to fuel discussions in ethics and public life. In contemporary society, the pursuit of pleasure has become deeply intertwined with consumerism and the endless cycle of lifestyle fads. Whether it's treating oneself to luxury goods, booking exotic travel, or constantly seeking external validation through social media, Modern life places a significant premium on immediate gratification and a pervasive sense of satisfaction. In fact, popular mantras like "you deserve it" have effectively fueled entire industries, especially in the wellness sector. This messaging often implies that happiness is a commodity, attainable as long as you continue purchasing enough comforts and treats. However, hedonism has always faced formidable critics. Consider Immanuel Kant, who vehemently argued that morality cannot be reduced to merely chasing pleasure. According to Kant's deontological view, actions must be motivated by a sense of duty based on a universal moral principle, not simply because they make the individual happy. Similarly, Friedrich Nietzsche viewed the perpetual quest for constant enjoyment as a sign of weakness. Nietzsche championed the idea that strong individuals embrace difficulty, confront life's hardships, and overcome challenges, rather than perpetually seeking an easy existence. These powerful criticisms force us to confront the boundaries of the doctrine. How far can hedonism truly extend? While it undoubtedly feels good to engage in enjoyable activities, is the goal of a human life simply to feel good all the time? Or does this singular focus neglect deeper, perhaps more essential aspects of the human condition? Today, many philosophers advocate for a synthesis, a more balanced approach to hedonism. They suggest it is entirely possible to enjoy oneself while simultaneously leading a meaningful, flourishing life that extends beyond mere fun. This integrated approach might prioritize responsibility, cultivating personal character, and contributing to the well-being of others. At its core, hedonism is the powerful philosophical position that pleasure is the ultimate aim of human existence. It argues that our happiness is intrinsically linked to how well we feel, whether that feeling comes from satisfying a simple hunger, sharing laughter with close friends, or witnessing the growth and development of a child. The enduring appeal of hedonism can be viewed in two fundamentally different ways. On one hand, it's the radical call to action to live purely for instant, moment-to-moment enjoyment. On the other, it's a measured suggestion to take careful inventory of what genuinely fosters our long-term happiness, and strategically bring more of those things into our lives. Today, hedonistic values saturate our culture, appearing everywhere from extravagant self-care rituals, like soaking in a lavish essential oil-infused bath, to the superficial currency of social media, where relationships are often measured by gift-giving and performative affection. However, the critics have a valid point. An exclusive focus on pleasure can easily lead to a shallow existence. There is a real concern that perpetual consumers might eventually feel empty, having neglected fundamental human needs like deep relationships, personal growth, or impactful social contribution for the sake of simply feeling good. The most relevant, up-to-date version of hedonism acknowledges this challenge. It reminds us that, alongside simple pleasure, we inherently value other things: meaning, close bonds, and sustainable lifestyles. Ultimately, the true essence of modern hedonism is not excess, but balance.